Yeah, brilliant. Yeah. So first of all, I would love to say welcome to our first ever live webinar with SPORTTAPE. We are delighted to those of you who have come to join us. My name is Kate-Anne, I'm founder of SPORTTAPE, and joining me tonight is Ben Warburton, head physiotherapist of Scarlets RFC and esteemed SPORTTAPE instructor. So some of you may already be aware of Ben with our courses that we've done online. The aim of this evening is to get you season ready, and we're going to try and do that with some top tips and advice from Ben. We aim to be on for about a half an hour. We'll stay as long as you guys want us, and any questions you may have, send them through. As I said, Lucy's online here to moderate, and we'll try and answer all the questions you have. We've also had some fab questions already submitted during the week, so I've got a note of those and I will put those to Ben. So wait and see if your questions are asked. And I suppose then it's over to you, Ben. I think what would be really useful to start the session is to get an understanding of how you became a sports physiotherapist.
Yeah, so I graduated in 2010 from Cardiff University. I'm from Cardiff, didn't fly far from the nest, never have done, don't think I ever will do. But my mother pushed me into sports physiotherapy, to be honest. So I didn't really want to go to uni. I was quite an introvert, quite a quiet boy. Loads of my mates stayed at home. I didn't really want to go to university. Mum said, you've got to go to university, do something. She said, there must be something you like, and I love sport. And I thought, well, I'm not going to be a coach. I'm not going to be an S&C coach because I love S&C, but that's like a hobby for me. Right. So I didn't want that as a job. An analyst, I thought I couldn't really stick on a laptop all day. So I thought, well, I'm interested in the human body, so I'll do physio. And that's kind of how I got into physio. And I think to add to that, I actually haven't got a deltoid on my right arm. Wow. So I had a bad nerve injury when I was 14.
Is that why your biceps are so big?
No, I don't know about that. Since I've had
I think
kids,
it's been over. Yeah, good.
But I played rugby when I was 14. I tried to hit somebody bigger than me. Obviously came off second best. And I had a nerve injury, little did I know. And to this day, I've got a deltoid on my left, but I haven't got one on my right. And I guess because I've had shoulder problems from that point, that got me interested in physio. So I went to physio from a young age. So I think fair play to my mother, and through getting injured, that got me into physiotherapy and wanting to be in sport as well.
Brilliant. And so what was your kind of journey as a physiotherapist? Because I know we got lots of first-time therapists and physiotherapists joining us tonight. Well done, congratulations. And so how do they go about, like, what was your journey and how did you get to the position of professional sports physiotherapist?
So, there's plenty of courses out there. It used to be that you had to do the physio course to get into sport. I think it's definitely opening up now to chiropractors, sports rehabilitators, sports therapists, but I did the physio course, and then once you got the qualification, you just got to get yourself out there. And I think that it's one thing where I think it's very big 15 years ago, maybe it's calmed down a little bit now, but I think as much as we don't want to hear it, I did so much work for free. So I did 6-7 months when I qualified. I remember I did 2 days a week with Cardiff Rugby, and that was luckily because of my connections with my family got me there. And then I did 2 days a week in a hospital, and I did 4 days a week for nothing. I actually went to the job centre, and I was getting money from the job centre because I couldn't find jobs at the time. So there's so many physios applying for certain jobs in the hospital. I couldn't get a job. So I did 4 days a week for nothing, but I think the fact I did that, luckily I was fortunate to go with a professional rugby club, but doing that and then working in a mainstream hospital, it just opened up so many gates, and I got to meet so many physios, and then somebody said, can you pick up this age grade team, can you pick up this community team? I just cover the odd thing here and there.
And I think that'll be a familiar story for everybody listening tonight, that it is that kind of having to work for free to earn that place.
You definitely have to put yourself out there. You just have to put yourself out there. I think if you can go down the NHS route and work on a salary with the NHS, or you do your own private clinic. But if you want to get into sport like I did, you just got to get yourself out there. Take any job you can. You'll bump into the right person at some point, and then if you do a good enough job, they'll, word of mouth, they recommend you for another role, and then that's it, you're on the ladder. Yeah,
brilliant. Great advice there. So I suppose we're all about trying to give great advice for the season ahead. You've currently coming off there. Are you still on holidays, or are you back in now?
I've got, what day is it today?
What have you got?
Is it Friday today?
Yep.
I've got
Thursday.
Yep. Is it Thursday?
Yeah.
3 days. You can tell I'm on holiday.
Yeah, there you go. Doesn't even know what day of the week it is.
Back in Monday.
Brilliant. So you've had 4 weeks off, but within that time you've had to rotate for the season. So my question to you before we start chatting to everybody is, so how does it work in the off season with your players, particularly in professional sport?
So we've had 5 weeks off. I'll actually cover 2 of the 5 weeks, and I'll have 3 weeks off, but then I'm very fortunate we've got a team of 4 physiotherapists. So we'll cover a week each, more or less. and then because it's ramping up and we're starting the pre-season on 8th of July next week. We've got so much rehab going on, which all a couple of us need to go in. But basically, each therapist covers a week each.
I got you.
So we all get plenty of time off as well.
Got you.
So, and then the players get what they need as well through the off season, because we can't just forget about the players. I appreciate in the amateur game, some of you guys don't get to see your players, but in the professional sort of game, we have to make sure we see the players who really need it. So obviously players are having a break as well, but through those weeks, we'll make sure that there's a physio on cover each week. So the player gets what they need to be ready for September. So
you're going back in then next week.
Yeah.
What do you do? What's your kind of prep for the season? What's your mindset? What are you thinking when you go back to the treatment room?
So I think, from my perspective in a professional team, I guess the year never stops, because the last game of the season happens, we mop things up, but again, the rehabbers, people need operations in the off season, which are just tidy-up jobs. And then they need post-op care straight away. So the job never really stops. So we get a bit of time off, but there's comms here, there and everywhere. So I think we almost preempt what's going to walk through the door on day one. So I think when you have all the rehab, the long-term rehabbers, you need to know where they're at. There's loads of bumps and niggles that you may not see for a couple of weeks, which might not actually recover as great as you think. So I think coming into day one of pre-season, you need to know exactly what the bumps and niggles are. You need to know exactly where your long-term rehabbers are. And again, on the day one of coming back in, I always say there's time slots. Make sure your rehabbers come in at one time. Make sure your short-term players come in and another time, so it's not just a massive onslaught of players coming in. And then just taping supplies, your trauma kit, making sure you've got enough of it, it's all in date. It's making sure you do all that as well. Maybe do that when the players are on the pitch. But before they're on the pitch, I think it's really getting to grips with what the rehabbers are up to in terms of their rehab and what little bumps and niggles are coming into the room. That's why I think you need to think ahead, and I think about that the week before, to be honest.
Okay, good advice there. We've had a question from Tammy during the week, who was asking, as a junior therapist taking on her first club role, what's kind of the key advice you'd give somebody going into their first season, if you like?
So two things. I've always said this to every junior therapist that I see. It's great working by yourself, because you learn to be like an autonomous practitioner. You learn to make decisions by yourself, and your timekeeping and being organised. But I think two bits of advice. One is don't isolate yourself, and make sure that you surround yourself maybe with another job if it's a part-time role with a lot of amateur clubs. Work with other therapists. I think don't get isolated. Make sure because you learn so much off other therapists. I always say this: you learn to drive a car, you start driving. We're all terrible. But I think, not saying that we're all terrible when you qualify as a therapist, but I think you need to surround yourself with other therapists, because you learn so much more. Just to go off on a tangent, I'll come back to one other point in a minute, but for example, I worked with the team for 8 years, and then I went with Wales Sevens then for my 9th and 10th year, and as much as I loved working by myself, and I felt I developed so much from physio, when I went back to working within a team, because you're a lone ranger with the Sevens, I found that this person had a nice drill, this person had a nice rehab plan, and you learn so much of other physios. So basically, don't isolate yourself too much. I think that's one bit of advice. And then the other bit of advice is, I guess, we got the intro to matchday course, which we introduced that because I remember my first few jobs, and thinking of the advice I give to the junior staff who work in the academies and the age grade now. I wish somebody gave me all that advice, because looking back, I mean, I was quite a good bloke and I was quite a good physio, but like my communication wasn't there, wasn't where it should be. Coaches probably didn't really know what players were and weren't doing. And I look back at my time now, teaching academy people now, thinking I didn't do that, to be fair. So we basically, the course we put together is to, especially if you're a newbie and you've just qualified, is to help you understand what you need to do pre-match, during the game, post-match, even just during training, before pre-season kicks off. All these things are completely covered, aren't they?
Yeah, so they are. And I know this was like a real passion project for you. It was something you'd been wanting to do with us for a long time. So last year we did film all this, and I think we've had some awesome feedback on the course, and we will be giving a free code for anybody online tonight to access that for themselves, because I think the feedback we've had has been second to none, and it's all the experience and knowledge that you've got, Ben, that is priceless, really. I think it's great. Like it does sound like a bit of a sales pitch, but honestly, it's everything I wish I'd known. It's everything I wish I'd known. And to be fair, it's not about the tape. It's just about how you prepare for that match day scenario. It covers things like insurance and traumas, and there's some real nuggets in there, isn't there?
It's brilliant. So Yeah, have a look at that. Have a look at that. We've got some snippets on the website, haven't we?
Yeah,
to
we
give you a
do,
bit
and
of
we'll
insight.
round that up toward the
Yeah.
end and give you some details of how you can access that, should you wish to. So yeah, I think then, in terms of like injury management then, because that's something you mentioned earlier, that you'll come back and you don't know what's going to be there, what rehab or where people are in their treatment plans, and that'll be the same for everybody listening tonight. Particularly within, obviously you work within professional rugby, are there common injuries that you then come across?
Unfortunately, the number one, or is definitely always in the top 3 every year, is concussion. And obviously it's a contentious subject at the moment, although I do think rugby manage it really well. Especially compared to, I think, every other sport. I think somebody in boxing can get knocked out and they get back up and everyone's cheering. But in rugby, if somebody gets knocked out and they stand back up again, if there's any hint of come back on, there's uproar, which is right. But I do think rugby comes into some scrutiny when they're doing the best, I think, out of any sport. But I think concussion we see a lot of. 2 reasons. I think rugby is getting more physical, players getting faster. I think the ground surfaces are getting better because there's 4G or artificial pitch, so people are able to run faster. Players getting bigger, faster, stronger, so collisions are bigger. So it's just physics. So I think that's one reason why concussion is so prominent in rugby. I think also we're getting better at identifying it. So the HIA process is in place now. We're much more in tune than we were even 10 years ago. Pick up concussions. So I think 1, the game's getting more physical, but 2, therapists and doctors are getting better at identifying it. So I think that's why concussion's on the rise. But then the 2 other injuries we see, especially at Scarlets, but I know I'm speaking for every other professional sports team, calves and hamstrings are a nightmare. Used to be hamstrings, more so calves have come into it, maybe because again the pitches are getting a bit harder. So you need a bit more activity and strength in your calf. But calves and hamstrings are probably, especially from a soft tissue perspective, they're rife. There's loads of them.
Brilliant. And then, well, not brilliant, obviously not great, but I mean good advice and it keeps you in job. But from an amateur, because you've obviously covered amateur sport as well as professional, is that injury sort of the same, or do you find that within an amateur sport they get the injuries are different? Yeah,
I think injuries are injuries. Especially in rugby. I've done a bit in football, by the way, so I can speak from a rugby and football perspective. But I think soft tissue is always prominent: calves, hamstrings. I think maybe the more dramatic injuries can be more prominent in amateur sport, because I think in professional sport we condition the players, or we do our best to condition the players to be able to deal with the loads going through them, whether it be running, tackling, carrying, whatever it is. So I think players are more physically developed, so they're used to taking big contacts. I think in amateur sports you can get quite a lot of ACLs because players aren't conditioned or used to the sort of intensity of a game, and they just rock up on a Saturday and then bang, your ACL goes. Achilles, things like that. So I think we see the same amount of see the same type of injuries in amateur and pro sport, but I think you do get some more long-term, don't say catastrophic, it sounds a little bit limb or life-threatening, but you do see those classic big injuries in amateur sport because I think players rock up on a Saturday and they're not conditioning themselves for the demands of the game.
Is there anything you can do to prepare for that as a physio then? With the season, knowing that these are probably going to come your way?
You can. I mean, it's very difficult, especially in an amateur environment, or even saying professional, because you're typically 1 or 2 people for 30, 40 players. So you've got to make players self-sufficient. So I think as long as they're conditioned in the best possible shape, we at Scarlets, and I know most clubs will have it, we have GPS, so we know what running loads the boys do during a week and during a game and during training, so we can replicate that. So it's a lot easier for us to manage, and I appreciate the amateur game doesn't have that. So as long as the boys are training pretty hard and they're doing their strength work in the gym, it's very hard to monitor, but at least you give them every chance.
Yeah. I suppose while we're on the topic of injury then, could you explain some of the protocols that you would follow for an immediate injury assessment? And by that I mean, I don't mean a trauma on the pitch, I mean just in general. Yeah,
so I think an assessment on the pitch is basically a whiz-stop tour of a normal plinth assessment or clinical assessment. So I think I used to do this in the first few years. I used to talk in my head about what I used to do. I remember being on a bus and I'd be going, right, if this is an ankle, and I'd go through in my head what I'd do. And again, this is on the Interim Matchday course, but stick to your process and just make sure you're really crisp with it. So the first things first, you just want to get a really slick subjective assessment. So, the player, if they're in agony, they'll be telling you exactly what the problem is. But you just want to say, what happened? What did you feel? Can you sound stupid? Can you point to the pain? Because what might happen with a knee injury, for example, and you end up looking at their LCL, their patella, the back of the knee, the calf, and they might just be, if you just said point to the pain, they might just pointing directly to the inside of their knee, so that you just dive in towards an MCL assessment, for example. So I think just ask them, what did you feel? what was the mechanism, because that's always a clearer mechanism, and then point to the pain. Just tell me where the pain is.
Yeah, it's really sensible.
And also, if they can't point to the pain, it means there's something probably deeper in the limb. Whereas if they point to the pain, it might be something more superficial.
Got you.
Not exact science, but as a general thumb. And then you just go through your normal assessment. So go through observation, have a look at the area, check for swelling, check for any deformity, go through your palpation. So again, make sure you know your landmarks and where your ligaments, your tendons and your bony landmarks are. Work your way through that. Then you're going through like active range of movement, just see if they can move their wrist, ankle, wherever it may be. Then go through passive if the active isn't full or if they're not in too much pain. Then you look at like muscle activation, your special tests, and just make sure you have a very crisp, you know, in your head, right, observation, palpation, active range, passive range, special tests, and just fly through it. And then once you've done all that, if they're good enough, do your functional tests. So that might be you go, if it's an ankle, can you calf raise, can you hop? If it's a knee, can you squat? Can you hop on one leg? Even if you've got time, the game stopped, to say, can you just jog 10 meters and back? I think they're really key. The functional ones are really key, and only do the functional ones, obviously, if their stability tests are clear and they're in decent comfort. But I think as long as you've got that process for any injury, you can't really miss anything. And sorry to waffle, but the one thing I would say, I'm lucky to have a mic, obviously in the professional game with the coaches and S&Cs and everyone's linked onto it. So if someone is, or you're attending to someone on the pitch and within 10, 20 seconds, you know it's going to be something which needs 2 or 3 minutes to attend to and someone's in quite a bit of pain, I would just give, if you're not mic'd up, you can tell the ref or tell a player to tell the coach on the side that you're going to be 2 or 3 minutes. Because if a coach is looking at an assessment on the pitch, they'll, 30 seconds to us feels like no time at all to make an assessment and make a call on someone. But to a coach, if you time 30 seconds and watch someone and there's nothing coming back, it's actually a really long time. They're thinking, what on earth's going on? So I always try within 20, 30 seconds, I say, listen guys, he's winded, he's going to be fine, just give us a minute and let him come round. Or equally, I might say, guys, we're going to need a couple of minutes here, he's in quite a lot of pain in his knee, we need to get a good assessment, make sure I'm making a good call on him, potentially get somebody ready. I think that's a really key thing to do, as well as assessing someone, just to buy you a bit of time and let everyone know what's going on. Yeah,
and thanks Vicky. I know Vicky's online and she's saying that the most common is usually in the second half, so she's agreeing with you. We did have a question, Matthew, I haven't forgotten about you, but I just wanted Ben to carry on there. Matthew specifically asked about calf and hamstring prehab. Any tips on that and what you can do before? Yeah,
I mean, God, there's so much to it. There's so much to it. I think the easiest things to correct are, strength, ankle stiffness or ankle reactivity, but stiffness is the buzzword. Calf capacity, they're things you can look at. But if somebody's still pulling their calf, I think looking at biomechanics is really important. So let's look at the whole chain. It's checking that they can triple extend when they run. It's checking that their glutes are firing. It's checking that maybe they're not too pronated in their feet and they've got a decent arch. Again, there's so many things that glute needs. You've got to look at the whole chain. So I think work on strength, so strength, capacity and ankle stiffness, and then biomechanics is massively important as well.
You're getting ribbed here. Vicky's saying, don't tell you she's an Ospreys fan. So,
oh dear. Let's get her gone, shall we?
No.
I'm only joking.
Jordan, I know you've asked about plantar fasciitis taping, and we will come on to a little section on taping now in a moment. And also, Chris, thanks. It's great to see all the support. Thank you, everybody. It's really encouraging for us on our first webinar to have so many people supporting us. So I'm glad to see you're all enjoying it so far. I suppose then we've talked a bit about injury management. You've given some really good advice there. I hope that answers your question, Matthew, on prehab. If it hasn't, send us Dragon's in the house now. God, we're covering all the regions. Of course he is. We're covering all the regions now, which is fabulous. Personally, I'm Leinster, if you hadn't told, but there we go. But so maybe if we talk a little bit about taping. I know in the week we had a question posted by Paul who asked, what is your favourite taping application, or what's your favourite area to tape? Because obviously, we're assuming they use a lot of tape.
Yeah, definitely. I actually love taping. It's one of my favourite things. I always say that match day taping, especially pre-match and the music's going and the excitement of the game, is my favourite part of the week. I absolutely love it. But my favourite taping application, for some reason, is an MCL. I love doing an MCL on the knee.
Is that common then? Do you tend to do a lot of them? Or?
It's bizarre. Sometimes you might go a few months without doing it, and other times you might get 3 in a couple of months, and boys love having that security of an MCL strap. But I love it because, one, I like to try and get the art of making it look really neat and fancy. And with ankle tape, people put up the socks. With an MCL, it's there for show. So the socks don't come over the knee.
So do you take your time on that one and make sure it looks pretty?
I think obviously sometimes there's a time and place you've got to rush, but
Yeah.
I do make it try and look nice, especially when it's on the telly, and you don't want people thinking that the Scarlets physios are bad tapers. But I love an MCL strap. I love trying to make it look neat. I love trying to avoid the kneecap, then equally trying to avoid the back of the knee.
Yeah.
So 'cause if you come over the kneecap too much, or if you go behind the knee too much, it can feel a bit too restrictive. So you've got to try and avoid those parts, but equally try and cover the MCL as much as you can and make it look neat.
Yeah.
And I think I'm quite good at it. But
Yeah.
for some reason I love it.
I think
don't know
other
why,
people would
I love
agree
it.
because I don't know if anybody's checked out our TikTok at all, but we have a TikTok post there which is of Ben doing an ankle, which has over 15 million views.
Yeah,
so
bizarre. We didn't
I
expect
think
that, did we?
No, we didn't
No.
expect that, but well done.
I like an ankle, yeah. But
He does like an ankle, prefers an MCL, but the man can tape anywhere. But
I think so.
And on that note, so what is the most used tape during a game? So what's the tape that you would use most frequently?
Again, rugby-wise, it would be 7.5 centimetre terribly AB. I think because the forwards use it for line-out taping, but we
Am I
can
gonna
use
catch?
it for.
Yeah.
Oh, here we go.
Oh, here we go. There
we
you
got
go.
it. So,
Yep.
7.5 centimetre terribly AB. We use this for line-out taping. We use it for ankles as well, overwraps with the MCL, the elbow, even some shoulders. I actually do a lot of this overwrapping the shoulder to make sure it stays in place.
Yeah.
So I love 7.5 centimetre AB for that, and that's more, I think, for pre-match because of the line-out taping, but even during a game for a boot strap. If you're going to do an MCL or an elbow strap, you're not going to have time to do zinc oxide strip,
Yeah,
so you're going to have to use that as a really quick wrap. So that's massively important, I think.
Yeah,
7.5
good.
centimetre AB.
And so what would the top 3 tapes be that you would have in your pitch side bag? So if you've got to run on to, what would you use?
Number 1, this, as you spoke about.
Yeah.
I think number 2
Oh.
would be the smaller version. So 5 centimetre terribly AB. And again, this is massively important for, again, talking about being on the pitch.
Yeah.
So wrists, again, the amount of wrists we have to tape on the pitch. Even smaller elbows, boot straps, smaller boots, people who may have, this sounds like I'm going into a bit too much depth. If someone's got 2 studs in their heel,
Right.
you can use 3-inch around the boot. If someone's got, like props, have got 4 studs on their heel, it's quite hard to get the 3-inch around the boot sometimes. You might want to go with a slightly smaller tape. Just little tips like that someone told me are really helpful. But I think on the pitch, essentially, terribly AB, because you can apply it really quick and rip it really quick. So they're 2 massively important ones I really like. The third one I'd like is the non-tearable 2.5 EAB. So this is mainly for thumbs and fingers. I think it just gives it a little bit more robustness when you're just using it in isolation, especially for the smaller joints. And it's just, again, really quick and easy to apply. Pitch size, you can do it within 30 seconds, or even a player can do it themselves if you teach them, which I actually try and teach players how to do their thumb. So they're the 3 I'd love to have in my pitch side bag, which I think you can't really get out of.
And then obviously that's during the game. So before then, are they more preventative things like ankle taping, shoulder taping?
So, I mean, the most tape we use, I think the tape you have to use, because the EABs, they do give some support, but not as much as you'd like, so on certain occasions. So I think zinc oxide tape you can't get away from. You have to have zinc oxide tape to really block off a range of movements of a particular joint. And I use loads of that. So here it comes. So I personally like the tan. It's stronger. I think it's 4 times stronger, isn't it, than the white? I'm not sure if I got that correct. But it's a rayon cotton, isn't it? So we've got the white as well. So again, it's cheaper, but not quite as tough.
But again, this is a good option. You know, you're in professional sports, so I'm sure your budget will probably allow you to stretch to the rayon a bit more than most of our amateur clubs, but it's just as effective.
It is. It is good. It's still, I mean, if I quickly rip the tape now, I'm sure you guys have had experience using this tape. Typical now, my nails, I just cut my nails this morning, so I can't. But even this tape is, it may be a bit thinner and a little bit cheaper, but as you can tell, it doesn't go anywhere. So zinc oxide is 100% the one you need, I think. So we use, in terms of applications, ankles, we do a load of ankles. I think that's probably the main one. Then shoulders, I actually like using maybe sometimes slightly thicker tape than this, so maybe sometimes 5 centimetre zinc oxide, but 3.8 tends to do the job for most joints. So I do a load of ankles and shoulders pre-match, I think, with the zinc oxide, and then using fixation tape as well. Just to make sure
you love fixation tape.
I think I appreciate it may be a luxury item for some clubs, but in terms of not having to redo a shoulder application, a couple of strips of fixation tape does wonders. It saves you a lot of money long term.
Exactly. Stuart, I have seen your message, and we will come back to it in a moment on how to communicate bad news. But whilst we're just on the talk of tape, Gillian's asked, she's got 2 really sweaty players. What would you recommend? And that's basically nothing will stick to them. So what would you suggest?
Shaving.
Are we going to try and catch this one as well now? Here we go. We've got some pre-tape spray coming.
Okay, so we got some pre-tape spray. If I didn't catch that,
I was like, yeah.
So yeah, pre-tape spray. 100% you need to use that. Players may not like it, but I think if the tape keeps coming off, you're going to have to try and sell it to them. I think shaving the chest, if it's a shoulder, that's typically an area where, I mean, shave any part of the body, wherever you're taping, it could be knee, ankle, but particularly shoulder, because it's not an enclosed tape application, it can peel off, whereas an ankle's enclosed. But shave the chest, because it doesn't stick as well to the hairs.
No.
Make sure you've got no lotion on as well, so if you're having a pre-match massage or soft tissue treatment, make sure you've had, not just water, not a wet wipe, proper soapy shower. You've got to get all that lotion off. So, and when you shave as well, another top tip is do it the day before, just so your skin sensitivity is less. And then also, I think the one which I remember figuring out for myself, especially for a shoulder, is I think what happens, we try and pin down a shoulder so hard so it stays on more, but what happens is that you move the arm, but because the tape is so taut, it just wants to come off the chest. So I think when you do your, which I would use fixation tape, when you do your layers on for anchors, then obviously you overlay to finish it all off, make sure their shoulder's out in this position here, because then when they go to there, the tape's already stretched into that position. Your zinc oxide tape or whatever you're going to use, that can be in a normal position. But I think when you're doing your anchors and your lock-offs, make sure that the joint is actually a little bit more exposed, so then it's not trying to rip off the skin as soon as you move that arm. I think that's a good tip as well, especially for shoulders. Yeah,
and I think, like you've just said, the pre-tape spray has been formulated specificically for that need, with the sweatiness and the awkward places where we know sometimes tape doesn't stick, but we know that it works a treat. So it might be worth giving that a try then, Gillian. Vicky's asked, do you ever tape for a broken collarbone?
I don't think we'd play anyone.
No.
I'm not sure what, I think if you think taping from a protective point of view, obviously from a playing point of view, I mean, we have the luxury of x-rays and CTs to ensure that the bone is fully united and healed. But in terms of taping, we put pads on just to cover it, because it can be quite sensitive, and again, just for confidence. In terms of taping, if somebody's injured, if you're trying to package them away, I mean, I'd probably use a sling. That's the gold standard. I'll use a sling. But then if you haven't got a sling, you would tape their shoulder just to give a bit of a lift, because if the shoulders, you've got traction from the arm and the weight of the arm hanging on the shoulder, it is going to be quite painful. So you might want to tape the shoulder just to give it a bit of help.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think post-injury, sling is ideal. For a game, it's probably just a big fat pad.
Yeah, okay. Stuart, I'll come back to your question now then. Stuart specifically asked about if a player gets injured in a serious way, which means they might be out of the game or not available to play, how would you deliver that advice to both the player and the team? Is there a right way to do that?
I think everyone has their own way of doing things, but I do think the one key thing for a therapist is, even if your heart is racing inside, which when something happens, no matter how many times you see it, I've been very fortunate. I've seen a few bad injuries, but nothing absolutely horrendous. But I think you just got to stay super calm. And what will happen is the player will be panicking, their fellow players and friends will be panicking. I think if someone gets seriously injured, you just need to really even if your heart's racing, like I said, just stay calm. Tell everyone to back off, because I think what happens is people come right on top of the player. People
they always want to help. They think they can fix it.
Yeah, just let the medics do their job. Whether it's a physio or it could be a first aider, whoever it is, and just keep your cool, talk nice and calmly to the player, because the player's going to be looking for so much reassurance at this stage. So it is a case of saying that they've done what looks. I wouldn't say don't go into any diagnosis. Don't try and predict timeframes or predict exactly what they've done. Just say you've got a decent injury here. We need to look after this properly. Can everyone just stay clear? Can we stop the game? Keep your cool. Stay really calm, and just let the ref know you're going to be a while, so people aren't rushing you to go anywhere. I think it's just in terms of what to say, you'll just do that naturally. I don't think I can tell anyone what to say. I just think it's just keeping you cool and staying super calm and making sure that people give the players space, because they can be the ones panicking the most.
That's fair enough. I hope that answers your question, Stuart. Just drop us a line if there's anything more specific you'd like to know. I suppose then, moving back to the season and getting ready for it, are there any other products that you wouldn't do without in your kit bag aside from tape?
I mean, fixation. I know it says siphon tape. Fixation tape. I think we do this on.
You keep talking about tape, Ben. I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
No,
fixation tape is key. I just
Yeah.
think it's absolutely. I think it's such a. And I'm saying it again because it's so underestimated.
Yes.
Most clubs probably, if you're going into it as a new therapist, you would know about it or use it.
Yeah.
But from experience, I think it is absolutely key, and it may cost a little bit, but it lasts you for ages.
And like you say, you tend to save in the long term with
from
that.
not redoing a shoulder.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Yeah.
I think that's a massive one to have. Scissors. Everyone needs scissors. But no, in terms of old school deep heat, maybe it's rugby, but a heat rub is, especially in the climate we unfortunately have to work in through the season.
Yes.
People love a deep heat variant. So if I didn't have deep heat in my bag, that's a massive fail from my end. Players would be fuming. So I think tape is number one, isn't it? Tape and scissors number one. Gauze, obviously, just to help cover a wound.
Exactly.
Gauze is key, and deep heats, they've got to be the ones, I think.
Yeah, I'm just, that's really useful. And just, David is asking about, I suppose carrying on from that injury on pitches and things like that, he's asking about any tips for CPD courses, particularly on pitch side trauma. He feels that the WRU don't seem to offer physios the amateur game. So you obviously have it from a professional, but is there anything you'd suggest for the everyday?
I feel guilty now because we obviously get it all covered for and we do the highest level possible. But
and they're not cheap.
They're not. No. It's about £800. I think
exactly.
It's very
I know.
expensive. But luckily, obviously, professional clubs they're obliged to pay it and do it. I think I know I did personally when I started off. There's a company called Lubus Medical. I think they're still going.
Yeah.
So they do it. And they're very good, and I've been doing the W courses for years now, but the Lubus Medical is pretty close to that, and that's a local one. Sorry, I'm talking from a South Wales perspective.
But a lot of these are now offering them online. Obviously, as a follow-on from COVID, we have got some positives in the fact that we can do online learning, and I'm sure there'll be something online there.
There's definitely stuff. I'll be honest.
We'll have a look, David, and if we find anything, we'll send that to you directly.
Yeah.
So
What I would say as well is, I guess you maybe working on your own. I think most people listen to this are working on their own. So all you can do really is CPR, essentially, and there's not much else you can do apart from getting the ambulance. So I think as long as you know your CPR.
And I think you cover this in the intro. I'm not, but in the intro to Match Day Physio, there's some really good tips and guidelines there which cover that sort of topic.
As long as you know CPR, you know how to. If something's fractured, you know just to immobilise it. If someone's got a potential neck injury, you immobilise the neck. And then you just got to basically tell people, again, it's on the course, but you just basically get the ambulance and tell people what to do.
Yeah.
Apart from that, on your own, you can't really do a lot more than immobilisation and CPR. So as long as you know that, I think that's the key thing, really. And then if you've got the luxury of going to a course and your club can fund it, then obviously that's excellent.
Yeah. So, we're going to start the season now. Do you think about planning the season ahead? Do you use information from previous years to be able to think, right, we're going to hit Christmas, we're probably going to be 20% down on players? Or how does that sort of work? Because even though we've got amateur sports, the same sort of thing will happen.
So sport. I think,
any advice there?
Yeah, I think we've gone off. So we're formulating our data now from last year. So we've had probably a couple too many calves and hamstrings we would have liked. Did well for shoulders, actually. So we did well for shoulders. So basically this year now. Good
tackling tips then this year?
Well, a lot of it is down to good coaching technique. Tackling technique.
Definitely.
But a lot of it as well is, we do a lot of shoulder rehab. Boys do a lot of upper body weights. So, that does help. But I think we've had a lot of calves and hamstrings. So we are naturally putting more focus into...
Do you think that might be because of 4G? Or is that just
It's a variety of things. Again, it's something I could talk about for 2 hours. But I think we noticed we had a lot of hamstrings off the back of a week off, because basically players had a week off. They came back in, their running loads just went straight back up of having a week off, and then they get what we call a spike. So I think we're trying to mimic those spikes through the year now. I think in terms of, we've looked at gym loading, in terms of when we do it and how we do it and what exercise selection we do, and individualising it a little bit more. So we put a bit more focus now going into this year on calves and hamstrings. We haven't necessarily focused more on shoulders because we've done, touch wood, we've done pretty well. So I think from that perspective, you can plan certain things, but most of the time it is reactive. You'll get, it might be that you get 3 shoulder injuries, or even you might get 2 Achilles injuries in a month. You've got to quickly look at how your training is because something's not right. So sometimes you've got to be reactive, but we do look at the previous season's data to help us, from a physio perspective, what pre-ab and rehab they should be doing more of.
Yeah, okay. And so for the season ahead, do you budget? How do you work out what you need?
I think clubs have been going for long enough now that there's years of data of how much you spend. So I think if to say you spend £5,000 on tape, and then all of a sudden you spend £10,000 on tape, the club probably knows you're taking the mick.
Yeah.
If you double your taping budget, so I think as long as you're staying in around your budget, that's how our club tends to work it.
Yeah.
And obviously, if we know we're going over, if we're forecasting, we're probably say. Obviously at Scarlets we spend a lot. Just say we're halfway through the year, we're spending 15-20 grand, and that's last year was £12,000. We'll give the guys a heads up, and maybe we look at could we tape a bit more efficiently. And because even in Welsh rugby, there's financial troubles. Just because we're professional doesn't mean we can just throw tape willy-nilly. So we still have to not just use loads of VAB for the sake of it. Yeah. So we'll keep tabs on it ourselves, and sometimes if we're under budget, again, doesn't mean you waste tape, but maybe could we do taping more effectively? Are we not doing enough taping? So it works both ways, but I think we just look at last year's sort of budgets and we work out, are we on track? And if we are, we just kind of go with it. It's not too rigid.
Do you find with players, I know when we've been to visit clubs and things like that, a lot of it's kind of player led as well, in terms of the preferences of what they like, how they rehab, how they tape. How do you get that player buy-in? And I'm sure from everybody's point of view, you do have to deal with the personalities of the players and how you deal with them. From your experience, how does that work?
I think that's the art of being a good physio. I think listening to people is massively important. So if you come in, give it the big I do this, I know this, I do that. I think people just think, hang on, who is this person? I think if you ask the player what's worked well for you in the past, what hasn't worked well for you in the past, what do you like? And then maybe if you think that needs to be adapted, you can just, in a good manner, educate them as to why you want to do it slightly differently. So obviously you've got to use your expertise, and I guess doing a good job in the first place is going to get any player on your side. If you do a good job on taping, soft tissue treatment, rehab, and it's varied, it's interesting, they're getting a stimulus off it, they're reacting well off it, that's the buy-in straight away. But I think it's just being, I always say, it's just being a good human. It's just not coming across too I know it all.
Exactly.
Because different things do work for different players. So somebody will come with an ankle strap that one person likes it this way, and another person is adamant they want it another way, and that's when as a therapist you have to adapt yourself. And some players will not change. I've taped certain players where the tape application is absolutely diddly squat, but they just want to stick to it. So at the end of the day,
if it makes them play better and they get on the field, that's your job, isn't it?
So you just roll with it.
Yeah, I get that. We've had a question regarding ACLs in women's rugby. So I know you're predominantly male, but do you share information between the teams and the groups? So in rugby like football, is there any comment on why this may be happening, particularly more within women than men?
Yeah, I think with women, a couple of things. Again, if you talk about biomechanics, there's a greater Q angle, as we call it. Yeah. So that's one thing. That's like from the angle from the hips to the lower limb. I think the one main thing, which again, speaking to the physios, in Welsh rugby, we're very fortunate to have, we're all within 2 hours of each other down the M4 corridor. Yes. So we can all chat to each other, we do CPDs, and we all know each other. It's a goldfish bowl. I think the main thing really, the women's game, especially in Wales, with Welsh rugby, it's gone professional in the last year or two. So training loads and it's just gone flying up, and they're just not used to it. So I think they will even out as their gym conditioning, their running loads even out over a 2, 3, 4 year period, and girls get used to it. But also I think we got to look at what's below the professional game. So I think if you're looking at the women's game, when you go below, this is why they got the new teams coming through. The one based in East and one based in West. We need to raise the standard below Wales, because the girls, if they're playing at a good level below they get to Wales, then when they get to Wales the jump isn't so high, so they don't get that spike in load and neurological fatigue where, for example, your quad and hamstring don't co-activate, and then you get more translation to your tib and your ACL goes. So I think you've got to look at, hopefully, because it's been professional, the longer that goes on for, it'll kind of, what we call it chronic training load. Their training load becomes longer and they become better and more robust. But the levels below need to get better, so when they jump up to that international or more senior environment, the step isn't too great, essentially. I think that's why women's sport has seen quite a lot of ACLs. Yes, so hopefully that will tail off as the profession develops. Yes, and the club game gets stronger. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Stuart's asked about ultrasound as a treatment modality in the professional game. Is it something you use, and have you found it effective? I'll be honest, I used to use ultrasound, but I'll be honest, it's something which has probably gone a little bit out of fashion. And I think a slightly more aggressive technique we use, but with the machine, is shockwave therapy. So for tendon injuries, especially, or soft tissue, we use shockwave. So we just find we get more bang for our buck with that. So boys get good responses for that. Actually, I say bang for my buck, they're expensive machines.
Yeah.
But we see a lot of tendinopathies, unfortunately, and I just find from a treatment perspective, that's what gives us the best result. So we use shockwave rather than ultrasound, to be honest.
Yeah. Brilliant. So I suppose it'd be nice to just a little bit about you as well then, is just to think, are there any physios that you kind of inspire you or that you would look to for some like CPD or, that you look up to?
CPD wise, I don't follow, I know people in work follow certain pages on Instagram. I've actually, just like a little tip, I've got 2 kids. I don't have time to read research papers, so
too busy reading children's books.
Yeah, honestly, yeah. So my brain's gone come the end of the day. So the way I find keeping up to date with research and practice is I've got one social media account which is just completely social. And I've got one where I just follow a load of people who I just find are really good. And when I fancy geeking it out, I just flick through my Instagram and I just see what they're saying. So that's one way I keep on top of it. The other one is rather than again specific people. I personally pay for the physio network, so that's about £96 a year. I think it's what's that work divided by 12. My maths isn't quick enough. Whatever it is a month, it's pretty cheap, and they've got hundreds of videos on there.
It's a couple of coffees, isn't it?
And they've got hundreds of videos on there with ACLs, Achilles, even like elderly patients and maybe more mainstream things, not just sport, respiratory, neurovascular, anything. So I basically pay £96 a year for that, and there's hundreds of videos, which are, some of them are hour long, and it's like going to a CPD tutorial. And rather
so that was the physio network.
The physio network, there's like Clinical Edge, there's like the BCP, Better Collision Project, there's loads of these guys out there. And there's a monthly subscription, and I find there's so many videos on there, and they give you snippets of research as well, so they'll read the research for you, and they'll give you a 5-minute summary, and it's perfect. So I personally pay for that because my time's limited, and the variety of videos you get is absolutely enormous for the sake of £96 a year. When you pay maybe £200 for a weekend course. So sometimes you need to go on a weekend course for like manual therapy techniques, but I think in terms of learning about injuries and just physiotherapy in general, I'd 100% look into those companies. They're brilliant.
Good. So you've obviously got quite a career in rugby. If there was any other sport that you could work within, what would it be?
Football, without a doubt. I feel like I missed the boat.
Then?
Tottenham Hotspur. Sorry,
guys.
God, I don't know how. I know. If I ever had a son, I'm not going to make him support Tottenham. It's borderline child cruelty.
Excuse me, women's football's on the rise. You've got your girls could be playing for Wales one day.
She can't kick a ball for anything at the moment, so I don't think she'll be doing any sports. We had sports day today, and she wasn't the best. So hopefully this video doesn't stay live in the somewhere. But no, I love football. I feel like I missed the boat because I've got 2 young kids, and football's obviously very full on. 2 games a week sometimes, and maybe it'll be something I go back into. But I think I missed the boat. But I love football. I think if I had my time again, I'd probably do a little bit more football physio because I just love football as a sport, probably more than rugby, to be honest. But because I was quite good at rugby growing up, or better than football, I just found I understood rugby a bit better. So I feel like I'm a better rugby physio than a football physio. But I probably wish I'd done a bit more football. Yeah. Well, you never know. There's lots of time, isn't there? You're still hopefully.
Young. I think we've covered off most of the questions that we wanted to cover, and I know we've had some awesome questions from you guys. If there's anything you want to ask us, now's the time. If not, we'll wrap it up. But we'll just give you a second. Vicky's sympathising for your poor child there now. So so hopefully, how old is she? She's not too old. She's 5.
She's 5.
5.
No, sorry, she's not even 5. She's 5 in August. So maybe I'm being a bit harsh.
Yeah, plenty of time there.
Maybe that's the physio in me.
Yeah, plenty of time. So I think, Stuart's just saying it would be far more exciting to work in rugby than football.
You do see a lot more injuries in rugby.
I suppose from a professional point of view.
To be fair to you, Stuart, what you just said there, I'm actually a much better physio. I'm not saying that football physios won't be as good as rugby physios.
No, but it is.
I feel I'm a much better physio having
more rounded.
Rugby. You see so much. Yeah. You see everything. Whereas football, maybe you're limited to lower limb, soft tissue potentially.
Yeah.
Here we are. We've got another question here from me. Do I take my shoulder? Have you managed without doubt?
For you.
So weirdly, So I severed my auxiliary nerve. Not that I knew this when I was 14 years old. This is something I learned as I became a physio, to be honest. But I severed my auxiliary nerve, so there's no activation to the deltoid, so it's literally, it's atrophied, it's completely gone. So I think because I did it when I was 13 actually, I was year 8. So I think because I've had it from such a young age, my body's adapted with it. I can feel like my upper trap is more prominent than my left, and my upper pec is more prominent than my left. I've compensated. My triceps stronger on my right side than my left. So just to compensate for a lack of a deltoid. So I don't tape it. It's not particularly painful, if I'm honest. It's just really weak, really weak. If I'm in the gym and I'm doing shoulder press, I've got 2 different weights. People will say, do you know you got 2 different weights? I'm like, I'm not blind. I've got a massive shoulder.
Yeah.
So, no, sorry, to answer your question, long-winded answer, I don't tape it. I might get a bit of impingement sometimes in it if I do too much gym.
Yes.
I'll just take an anti-inflammatory and maybe, practice what you preach. I mean, I don't do that enough, but I'm not too bad.
Yeah.
And no, it doesn't affect me in work, to be honest, no. I can do manual therapy. To be honest, I actually find I struggle with my thumbs. I've got quite bendy thumbs, so I find I struggle with my thumbs, to be honest. But shoulders, no, I'm actually okay with work. So it doesn't affect me, thankfully.
Yeah. Okay. I know Daniel's talked about taping courses. I was going to cover a little bit as we summarise that you could attend. It'd be great to know your location, Daniel, because we've got some online courses and then we've been running some more locally to us in South Wales with Ben. So if you drop us a line, let us know, then I can give you a little bit more detail on that. I think that's probably everything for now.
Yeah.
Listen, I want to say thank you so much for joining us. We've really enjoyed it. I hope you have too. It's been really enjoyable, and this is the first one we've done. So we would love to do more. We would love to cover an array of topics that help you through the season, because we are here and we are happy to help, and we want to join you for your season, not just on your taping journey, but on your rehab, your prehab, whatever we can do to help. Don't forget to follow us. We've got loads of social channels. We've got a Facebook and Instagram. Get on there. We offer loads of tips and hints. We've got lots of exciting products and things coming in the pipeline. I also want to thank Ben, because obviously he's a knowledge for all his knowledge bombs tonight. It's been really insightful for me, and I hope it has for you. I'm loving all the comments to say you've enjoyed it. It's really encouraging for us. I'm just going to wrap up by saying a few things. First of all, I did mention the introduction to Matchday Physio that will be free. We have popped in for anybody who hasn't got a professional account with SPORTTAPE, if you do have a pro account, you can log in there, and what will happen is add it to your basket, it'll automatically be free. For anybody who doesn't have a professional account with us, get on there and get one if you want. They're free to do, they're really quick and easy, and you get that. And for anybody who doesn't want a professional account or is just an athlete with us training tonight, pop the webinar free is the offer. Yep, just double checking. The offer that you can pop in and you'll get that to download for free. A couple of other things. We are running a competition with VX3 at the moment, and we're offering over £1,500 worth of free giveaways. So that includes a full team kit, full taping bundle for your club. So what are you waiting for? It's really simple. Just get online. We'll post the link for that one as well, and you could be in with a chance to win. And then finally, getting back to Daniel, if you are in South Wales, we are running a live in-person workshop on the 28th of July with Ben, and that's at our brand new HQ in Bedwas, which we're really excited to show people because we're really proud of what we've done, and we would love to see as many of you there as possible. And I think I'll just summarise by saying thank you so much again. Thank you to Ben for his time. We would love to see you again. We are here and we are happy to help, and we would love to join you on your journey for the season ahead. Yeah. Thanks a million. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you for coming in, guys. We appreciate it.
Cheers.
Cheers
Bye.
now.